Hello, everyone, and welcome into Pioneer Basketball with Coach Devan Carter. I'm Brian Staten. The Pioneers go 1-1 last week, and at the final week of the regular season, a Pioneer team that's still looking to stay in the top four in the South Atlantic Conference standings. Brian Staten joined by Pioneer coach Devan Carter. As Pioneers again go 1-1. You've got yourself in a nice position to be in because I think you, in some ways, control your own destiny going through that. But a big week last week and a big showdown, not necessarily in a South Atlantic Conference frame of mind, but almost like an NCAA playoff frame of mind. And I think you had to go into that game that way. The Carson Newman Eagles hosting you at Holt Fieldhouse. And boy, what a great atmosphere, number one, because I think the game was that meaningful for both teams. And you got out to a very good start in that contest.
Got out to a great start. I think that, our kids were definitely, had taken on that rivalry and just, came out prepared. I think they came out locked in, did a lot of things well early, made some shots, rebounded well, was able to push some tempo, and really, got off to a great start, which is imperative on the road. Mm-hmm. And like all great teams, they battled back, but just a back and forth game the entire game. And, at the end of the day, that you're going to get your best shot from them, and I'm sure they felt the same way. They were going to get the best shot from us, and heck of a ball game.
But Pioneers come into the contest, one of the best teams, obviously, defending the three-point line. We're going to get a little bit more into that, but you shot very well from the three-point line very early in the game. Then they made a little bit of an adjustment. I noticed they put a little bit more pressure on the three-point line. Then we started just missing some open shots in that first half. They were able to battle back. Some of the keys, I think, for you defensively was the fact that you held Marasites in check. It's just that other players for them stepped up.
Yeah, and credit to them for that. The first time we played them, Marasites beat us. She beat us down the stretch. She knocked down two clutch three-pointers in the ball game, and we were up 5, I believe, and she knocked down 2. Next thing you know, you're down 1 with a minute to go, and we were just determined that their best players weren't going to beat us this time. And so, they had a player step up, probably had a career game. Tori Griffin stepped up, and I went back and watched the film because, we were talking about making the adjustments, and we're talking about switching with our kids higher and with more pressure on the basketball. But she hit some threes that were so deep. One of them, she was almost staying out of bounds and knocked it down. And so, when you have good teams, you got to have players step up, and she definitely stepped up for them. Knocked down some clutch shots. Our saying is make some of those other guys beat us, and she was one of those other guys, other girls, and she stepped up in a major way, and credit to her. She's known as a shooter. And she stepped in and knocked down some big-time shots.
But the big moment in this contest was just before the half. Pioneers had the big lead in that first half. Carson Newman battled back, getting back into it. Tusculum was up 13 in that first half. Carson Newman continues to battle incidental contact underneath the bucket, according to everybody, with the exception of one person who blew the whistle for a foul on me along. But it was two players that collided, just trying to get an inbound play. Harris Price was trying to defend Mia Long, keep her from getting the ball. They collide. Mia gets the foul, but more importantly, she has to exit the game for the rest of the game. She had a little bit of a neck issue. Harris stayed down for a long time. I'm sure they checked her out at halftime. She was okay. Continued to play the second half. But that's a big pivotal moment in the game when you lose your all-conference guard.
It was huge, and you know what? Anytime you lose, at that particular time, Kendria Duke was on the bench with foul trouble. But any particular time you lose your fastest player, person that leads the nation in steals and everything else. That's a huge blow, and that was a huge blow for us. On the road, you're playing well. I thought she did a great job of pushing pace. I thought she did a great job of guarding Harris Price. I thought she did a great job of getting us in the stuff, and she created a lot of those open shots for us. It wasn't necessarily a mere fact of them making adjustments. It was just that we weren't able to put the pressure on the paint that we normally do to push the basketball out to shoot her. So. Pivotal moment, and you know what? At the end of the day, you ask any team, you lose your starting point guard on the road against one of the top teams in the country, they're going to say it's probably not going to end well for you. But our kids battle. Without that, tie ball game, under a minute to go. Our freshmen stepped up and gave us great minutes. Jayla Armwines moved over to the point guard spot, gave us great minutes. And I think it says a little bit about the resiliency of our team to still be in that ball game despite, losing me alone.
Harris Price makes the two biggest plays of the game because they were the two biggest of that particular moment in the final minute. Gets a steal, makes 2 free throws, and also baits one of our guards who had to move over into that position to a foul as well. A heady player. It's the reason she's an All-American. Yeah. And they get the victory, 73-71. Yoliz McCupidon with 21 points. You get 11 points out of Lovely Locklear. You get 16 out of Kendra Duke, who plays once again just 18 minutes in the game after picking up early foul trouble for the Pioneers, who had only 5 3-pointers in the game based on what they had done the previous game and hit 12 against the Lenore Ryan Bears. So I think, to your point, we didn't create those open looks later in that contest. And Tori Griffin scores a career high 20, ties that career high, but a career best in 3-pointers made in a game. But we defended the 3-point line well. She just made some really big shots.
Absolutely. Made some huge shots. And at the end of the day, there are going to be games where you just flat out, get beat. And our philosophy has always been keep everything in front of us, defend the 3-point line, and force people to take those twos. She just said if they're going to defend the 3-point line, I'm going to step back a little bit further. And she knocked down some clutch shots. And, obviously with Carson Newman, it's going to be a high-scoring affair. It's going to be back and forth. And, I was really, at the end of the day, proud of our kids because they've overcome so much adversity. And, for them to go in, you lose your starting point guard and still find a way to still, have a tie ball game, 40 seconds left. At the end of the day, we've got to execute better down the stretch. Had the, potential to take the last shot, and, we didn't get that shot off. And so at the end of the day, we've got to execute better down the stretch and got to do a better job closing out ball games.
Pioneers still forced 19 turnovers. Of that, 10 of those were steals in the game. Pioneers limited their turnovers, just 11 in the contest, and hit just 5 3-pointers, as I talked about. One of them right at the very end, the shot that he's talking about. They executed to get Patterson. The look, and it just depends, I guess, on what color shirt you're wearing, that the look may have been a little bit too contested, according to some. However, I like the quote that you said, elite teams find ways to win in the game, and they were the elite team today. Meaning there could be another showdown maybe down the road somewhere. At least that's what they're hoping for. The Pioneers fall 73-71. It ends a 5-game winning streak, and then we travel to Hartsville, South Carolina. It's a Coker team that, maybe their record doesn't show that, they're as good. They're pretty young in some areas as well. Then they got a lot of veterans who just, I don't think, have lived up to their potential, to be honest with you, in some certain ways. But they're scary. They're dangerous. It was their senior day. They're at home, and they're always we go there and can prepare and do all the things that we want to do to prepare. But still, you could probably throw cold water on them just before they come out of the locker room just to take the court, and it's still not going to matter, it seems. Coker seems to have that mesmerizing way against us, and not that you got off to a slow start, because I think you got off to the start you wanted. It's just we weren't finishing very early.
Yeah, and it's like when you go to Coker, it's always something. We got to the hotel the night before, and they said, "What? We don't have your rooms." And we had confirmation numbers and everything else for the rooms, and so I sat in the lobby for about 2 hours until they figured out something, and the manager had to get out of bed and come to work, and man, it was something. And then raining and flooding and doing everything down there, so it was an experience. We come out in the ball game. I thought we got off to a great start, and then all of a sudden we hit a lull there at the start, and obviously dealt with some foul trouble again, and had to overcome that. It was just a unique game. I walk out to the bench at the start of in warm-ups, and one of their kids dunked the basketball, and one of their post players legitimately dunked. I mean, she dunked it, and so with all that being said, though, Coker came back and made a run against us, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in a dogfight. at halftime, I just told the kids, like, you know that this is not going to be an easy place to play, and you're not going to expect them to lay down. They're a very good team as far as their athleticism and their talent, and we've got to find a way to lock in on some details and get this done. And in that second half, or the first half, excuse me, I didn't think we did a good job of the details. I thought we were loose with some basketballs. I thought we were loose against some hedges, and then all of a sudden, second half, we lock into those details and we're able to get it right. So, obviously proud of the girls, but man, I'm glad that's our last trip to Hartsville.
Yeah, right. Playing without me along once again for the Pioneers, Callie Patterson picked it up, went 4 of 5 from three-point territory. She got her 100th of her career as well, as the Pioneers get this 59-35 win. More importantly, more impressively, I think, it's the third opponent in the last 6 games that you've held to 35 or fewer. Mm-hmm. And I don't think people understand in a college basketball game, college athletes, that you go recruit to bring into your school to do those types of things. How good are you guys playing defensively? Not necessarily right now, but right. And why have you been so successful all year?
Well, honestly, it's been a combination of a lot of things. I think that as a coach, I think last year we were like 200 and something in the country in defense, and at the end of the day, that's not getting it done. Mm-hmm. It comes down to stops, and it comes down to getting stops in the half court. And honestly, as a coach, I took it upon myself to just figure out how can we get better in the half court, period. And went around this summer talking to different coaches, and credit to Wes Pfeiffer at Northern Arizona. He sold me on a theory. We adopted it 1,000%. And, this year I think we're top 15 in the country in overall defense. Our kids have bought into it, but at the end of the day, we have tough kids. Yeah. And I think that's the big piece of it, is that we have kids that are just flat out tough. We grind, we work, and they're willing to buy into that concept. And then, you have kids that are, like Jayla Onwine, who get after it. Nia Long, lead the nation in steals. You have some protection in the back with our big. So it's just been just a team effort. You are what you emphasize, and we try to emphasize that every single day. Our kids have bought into it. They enjoy it. And that's very rare to find nowadays, is kids that enjoy defense. So our kids are just great with it. And I think that's, gone a long way for us, and it's been the reason why we've been able to take that next step, is because we're just better in half court defensively.
Hold Coker to 7 in the second, 6 in the third, and hold them to 35 for the game. You get the great help from some. Again, without me along, Kendra Duke didn't have her all-conference type of a game in the contest. So you get people like Maddie Sutton that was coming up. She's been hurt and just kind of getting back to 100%. Callie Patterson has been hurt, kind of getting back to 100%, finishing with 16 for you. You get production from some people that I think we counted on, one being a scorer, one being a defensive stalwart, and I think we see why the Pioneers were successful on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Maddie is, I tell our kids all the time, my dad says to me every time we get off the phone, and we've adopted it in our program, is just stay the course. Always tells me to stay the course, and we always tell our kids that as well. You can get caught up in your circumstance and say, man, I didn't play this game, so I'm just going to shut it down, or I'm going to come to practice and not give my best effort. But we always encourage our kids to stay the course, because you never know when your number is going to be called. And it's always better to stay ready than to have to get ready. And so Maddie Sutton has gone through adversity all year. She's dealt with the injury. She's dealt with playing more minutes last year than she did this year as a sophomore. She's dealt with freshmen playing in front of her. She's dealt with a lot of things. But the thing with Maddie is that she's just consistently stayed ready. And so she got the opportunity, and she took advantage of it.
Yeah.
The thing about it is, she's been preparing for that opportunity for a long time. So it's really great to see. Sometimes you get young kids and they get caught up in their situation, they shut it down.
Yeah.
And we stay on our kids about just being tough enough to continue to work, and she has. And I was so thrilled to see that work out for her, because she could have easily shut it down. Yeah. But she stayed the course. She kept working. She's been getting up shots. And at the end of the day, it's no secret. If you want to make shots, you got to work on shooting. She's been working on her shooting. And so when we were going through that lull in the first half, she knocked down 2 big-time threes that we needed to kind of get us out of a rut. And we got to halftime with the lead because she was able to come off the bench and provide a spark for us.
The Pioneers go on to that win, as mentioned, go 1-1 for the week. Get another big crucial win in Hartsville against Coker and Coach Shannon Johnson. The Pioneers enter the final week of the regular season, still scratching and clawing their way in the conference standings. But also there's that behind-the-scene thing that you don't really see right now, the regional rankings, which just came out, which places the Pioneers right now into the postseason as an at-large if they're unable to win their conference tournament, which, oh, by the way, is just around the corner as well. We'll talk about that when we return with more after this. This is the Pioneer Basketball Show with Pioneer coach Devan Carter.
So much of life these days is rushing around from one place to another. Sometimes you just want to enjoy the journey on the way to the destination. And part of what makes it a little more enjoyable is an appreciation for the folks who help you get there. At Ingalls, we know that the people who send you on your way are the same ones who keep you coming back.
I think you should take it for a spin. Are you serious?
Ingalls, all the ingredients for family.
Welcome back into Pioneer Basketball with Coach Devan Carter. I'm Brian Staten. The Pioneers embark on a big week this week, Lincoln Memorial and Wingate. The good news is you get them both at home ahead of the conference tournament. We know we're into the conference tournament in some ways, but I don't think you want to rest on your laurels that way because I think you want to keep the gas going. You got 2 games against 2 opponents that you feel that, you know what, we should have got them when we were at their place. And I know, it's not motivation, it's not anything else, it's just one play here, whatever it may be. We lulled defensively, we lulled against Wingate on a couple of 3 looks. Against LMU, I think we weren't very good in the first half. We made a huge response in the second half. The games that are totally different. 2 different teams, 2 totally different ways to prepare for games. But what a way to end the season.
And you know what? It seems like we always end the season that way. We always have a tough stretch those last 2 weeks of the season, and this year is no different. Obviously, I felt like when we went to LMU the first time, if I could describe it in one word, I just thought we were tripping in the first half. I thought that our attention to detail wasn't great, and I just felt like that our effort was just mediocre. And then in the second half, you go from down 18 to up 9 or whatever it was. You make this great turnaround, and I think at that moment our kids realized we're capable of so much. And it's one of those games where you start off kind of off from the field, and then you start making some shots, and things start going your way. And then at the end of the day, your game's decided by 1 second. And so we'll leave it there. But
decided by a whistle. It was decided by a whistle that wasn't blown in another game this week by the same person. Go ahead.
So and then but at the end of the day, you go back, you break down the game, and you say, man, if we do this, this, and this, you win this game. And you have a good road win. And then Wingate, kind of same situation, a totally different style of play. But you go to Wingate and you make this second half comeback once again. And then I think the thing that Wingate taught us was just how important locking into personnel and scouts are. We did a great job to come back in that ball game. We did a great job of making shots down the stretch. We did a great job of getting the ball inside. We did a great job of forcing them into tough shots. But then at the end of the day, you don't pay attention to personnel, and you have a kid that's their shooter on their team, knock down a 3, and basically puts the ball game to a 2-possession ball game with a few seconds left. And our kids know that you get a stop right there, you have a chance to win the ball game. So in both of those matchups, we had a chance to win the ball game with 30 seconds to go in the game. And I think that's the thing that as coaches it eats us up, because you look at, we've had about 3 ball games that have come down to a single possession, with under a minute to go. on the road, and we've got to find a way to get those done.
Yeah.
Because what it does is it separates you from a really good team, and it makes you a great team. Because now you're, 22-4?
Yeah.
That's a lot different than 19-7. And even though that's still progress, that's still a step up, and we keep moving forward, we want everything now. And so it's something that I think as coaches we've learned we've prepped for, so we can put our kids in better situations to finish these games off. And down the stretch, you got to.
Yeah.
You got to.
A Pioneer team that takes on LMU and Wingate. Of course, the regional rankings that came out last week will show you just the strength of what the South Atlantic Conference has when your top 3 teams are South Atlantic Conference teams, and there's Tusculum. Now, obviously, this is going to change as we record this show. These things will alter and change in some ways. But that's pretty impressive to have the top 3, from the South Atlantic Conference. That hasn't always been the way that it has been. It's always been a very good conference. There's no question about it. But you've had these Peach Belt teams that have been so good for so long. You see that what you've been saying all year, it's the best league in the country.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing that right now in our region rankings. So these games are important for conference standings, but it's also important to get a win, you got your 20th. I mean, and that's a big number. Yeah, I know 22 would be great, but you get to 20, that's a big number. And I think there's a greater thing that we got to look at going forward this week.
Yeah, and you know what, I tell people this, and any recruit that's listening, or AAU coach, or whatever it may be, this is the best league in the country. Mm-hmm. And we've played Division I teams in close scrimmages or whatever, and I've left those games that's a 7th place team in our league. Mm-hmm. I left those games they really couldn't keep us out of the paint, or they turned the ball over 27 times against us, and we've beaten a Division I team past 2 years, and but that's just a testament to our league. The best coaches that I've coached against are in our league, and I've coached against some Division I coaches in other different places. But our league is just so tough. You never know, that you can't take any games for granted. Whether it's a Mars Hill, whether it's a Coker, you have to play those games, because if not, you're going to get beat. Mm-hmm. And so, it's one of those things that I think our league has established itself as the best, and you got to be on your P's and Q's, because you look at the regional rankings, you see the teams that are in there, and you just think we beat up on each other all year. Yeah. But I'm glad to see that we're getting that recognition and respect, because I think you can take some teams in our league and you put them in other leagues, and you're a first place team. Mm-hmm. No doubt in my mind, you could probably take 4 or 5 teams from our league and put them in other leagues, and they're a top 2 team in that league as well. So, really blessed to be a part of it. It makes you better as a coach. It makes you better as a person. It humbles you, mm-hmm. And it makes you just an all-around better person by being in this league and being challenged every day.
Hey, Pioneer team wraps up the regular season this week. Lincoln Memorial and Wingate, Wednesday and Saturday. You can watch it on the Pioneer Sports Network through their Tusculum YouTube channel. We'll begin at 6 o'clock on Wednesday and at 2 o'clock on Saturday for Senior Day as well. My goodness, can't believe that time is already here. For everyone behind the scenes, Nick Forsberg, Dom Donnelly, and Jim Miller, he's Pioneer coach Devan Carter, and I'm Brian Staten. And until next week, go Pioneers.